not actually solving this currently. I'm just scrambling it so I can solve it later. All right. Are we live? I think we're live. Hello and welcome to the Hayfeed Digital Podcast pre-show. This is the part of the show before the show where just make sure all systems are go and everything is up and running. It looks like YouTube is up. Now, do I look a little bit... Hold on. I need to check. I feel like my exposure's a little low. Let's see. No, that's kind of hot. Hold on. Okay. I don't know. Maybe it's the screen that I'm looking at it on. It looks all right, I guess. All right. How's my exposure? If everything looks all right, let me know. Okay. Let's go around and do our systems checks. We got camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. Awesome. Looking good there. Back here. Audio. I got to put that up. Audio looks good. I am recording on the board now. And let's double check, make sure that we are up and running on the other socials. This podcast is also streamed on my personal Facebook page because I don't pay for Restream, as well as Twitter and as well as Twitch. Oh boy, let's see. Okay, it looks like we are up and running there, but for some reason... Oh, there it goes. Okay. Let's see. Looks like that works. Awesome. Today is episode 74, and I really don't have much else to say outside of what we're going to be talking about today, and there's got some interesting stuff for you today. If anyone out there is struggling with organization when it comes to Premiere, that's what we're going to be talking today. Especially if you're someone who, let's say, makes or works on projects that consist of multiple videos. But I will go into some details there about how I do that because I just finished up a campaign related to that. But I don't want to give too much away because we haven't even started the episode yet. This, by the way, is a portion of the podcast that you won't hear in the audio version, only in the video version of the podcast. That's really all I had to say about that. Anyway, okay, make sure your phone's on silent. Wet the whistle a little bit. And let's just go ahead and do this. Do I have my... I do, okay. Hello, and welcome to episode number 74 of the Hayfeed Digital Podcast, a show for creators, makers, and doers. My goal is to help you make to the max. My name is Ryan, and in this episode, I'm going to give you some organization tips for multi-video projects in Premiere Pro. Let's talk about it. Woo! Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Man, what a week. So today on the show, it is May 3rd, 2021. I do want to talk about some organization tips. We've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes, but I just finished a very long and in-depth campaign for Fight, which was this past weekend. So I thought I would talk a little bit about Fight Week and just kind of take you through that experience a little bit, but then also show you, because I produced a lot of content for this campaign. Campaign meaning social media content campaign, social media marketing strategy to help market this fight. So I produced a lot of video content as well as some other video assets and things like that. So I wanted to basically, I'm gonna open up my Premiere Pro project file from that campaign and show you a little bit of how I work through all those different assets that I'm creating and how I organize my project panel and all that kind of stuff. But if you are new here, my name is Ryan Hafey. This is the Hafey Digital Podcast, soon to be named something else, probably, but I just haven't had a chance to get around to it. But what I do here is I talk about all things content creation, whether it's photography, video, podcasting, live streaming. Occasionally I'll talk about FPV, FPV drone flying, that is, and basically anything else you can think of related to the world of content creation. And if that's, and I also, I document my process and my progress through various projects that I happen to be working on right here on this podcast. So if you're interested in any of those things, it would be really great if you could hit that subscribe button wherever you happen to be watching or listening. Also, be sure to follow me on social media at Ryan Hafey on Instagram and Twitter, and also TikTok if you're not there. And also on my main YouTube channel, which is just called, it's just, if you just search my name, you'll find it. And I'll include a link somewhere in the description of this video. But anyway, so let's talk about Fight Week first. So for anyone who's not aware, this past Saturday, May 1st, we had a big fight on Fox and Fox pay-per-view. It was headlined by Andy Ruiz Jr. and Chris Arreola. Really fun card. It was nice. It was out at Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, which is an outdoor venue, which posts its own set of challenges, especially on the photography side. But it was also nice to have fans in attendance. There were fans at this one finally. I say finally, but there've been a couple other COVID events that we've had where there were fans. But this is in California, and California was super strict on the closures and everything for a while. So it's nice to see that we can start to bring that back a little bit. It was limited capacity, but man, it was a rowdy crowd. So this fight card was basically, at least the pay-per-view portion of it, there were 10 fights total on the fight card itself. Some of them were only live streamed on social media. Some of them were on Fox, just regular Fox, and then 4 fights were on Fox Sports pay-per-view. And there was a lot of good fights there. We sold it as kind of an all Mexican extravaganza, which the pay-per-view portion of the fight card was. All 4 fights that were on the pay-per-view featured Mexican warriors, and the main event did not disappoint. Again, Andy Ruiz Jr. Andy Ruiz, for any non-boxing fans out there, Andy Ruiz Jr. is the heavyweight that beat Anthony Joshua and lost to him in the rematch, but that's how he got his claim to fame, is he went out there on late notice and beat Anthony Joshua to become, for a period of time, the unified heavyweight champion of the world. And I was honored to be able to go to both Andy's and Chris's training camps for this campaign. And really, everything started as early as March 23rd, as far as the campaign goes. And it was a long one. We produced with a small team. We did a lot of work, and I think we got some really good results out of it. But anyway, so Fight Week is the same as previous Fight Weeks I've been to, from the standpoint of COVID and all the COVID restrictions. I was actually in LA as early as Tuesday of last week, because when you have a boxing event, you obviously got Fight Week events, for example, main event press conferences, undercard press conferences, weigh-ins, and that was kind of the extent of it for this one. But get to the hotel, you check in, your bags are, all your luggage is sprayed down and sanitized. And then you go and get a test right away, a COVID test, and then you go up to your room and you quarantine until that test is done. When you check in, you also get a bracelet on your wrist as a barcode. Everywhere you go, whether you come down from your room or go to eat lunch or whatever it may be, you got to scan in and out. And just so, I mean, it's all safety precautions so they can keep track of everyone. And if there is an exposure, we can keep everyone as safe as possible. But man, they lock them down so much that it's I don't see how it would even be possible to have some kind of an outbreak. By the way, Robert chimes in from the Never Call Me Again podcast, said changing up days. No, I'm not changing up days. It's just that I just got back into town Sunday. Normally I do this podcast. I live stream it on Sundays, but just with what time I got in yesterday and everything going on, I needed an extra day. So we're doing it. We're getting it done. We're not missing a week. We're just a day behind. So that's how it is. But so yeah, got in on Tuesday. Wednesday was the main event press conference. Did some social media coverage and photography for that. Thursday was the undercard press conference. Did the same thing there. Same thing for also the weigh-in as well. And then Saturday night was the big day, and got to the venue about like noon or so. First fight started at 1:50 p.m. Pacific time. So, and you know, people may not realize when you see boxing on TV, there might be 3 fights or so in a broadcast, but most of the time, that is not most of the time. That's not how many fights are happening on that day. You have a fight card that'll have, you know, depending on the event, it could have as little as 3 to 5 fights, or it could have as many as 12 or 13. Like it all really depends on the fight card. In this case, I think there was 10 or 11 fights. Got there, man. Like that LA crowd, especially, you know, when you bring in the Mexican fans love boxing and they love to get rowdy. There were fights in the stands. It was a fun event, but yeah, it got a little rowdy out there for a little bit. Shooting I shot most of the fights ringside, and shooting in the sun, because it's an outdoor venue. All there is a canopy over the ring. Top of my head is sunburnt though from having to sit out in the sun for so long. But shooting with, you know, outdoors poses its own set of problems. Like when you're inside shooting a boxing match, when you're in an arena, the lights are shining constantly throughout the night. Your exposure is not going to be changing. So when you're shooting ringside, you can essentially set and forget your settings and just fire away. When it's outdoors, and especially when you're shooting into the evening, the sun starts going down. You have to change your exposure. You have to change your white balance, and you have to adjust as you go. So, the shots that I took at the beginning of the night look very different than the ones that I took at the end of the night. But we got it taken care of. We worked it out. I have a couple photos from the main event on my Instagram if you want to check it out, at Ryan Hafey. Feel free to go over there and look at those. But yeah, it was a long day, and the main event did not disappoint, and it was fun. But I will say I'm glad it's over, because man, that was a lot of work. By the way, if you're only listening to the audio version of this podcast, I do recommend going and checking out the full YouTube version of it. You can find a link to that in the description of the audio version. But I'm going to go ahead and jump in now to my Premiere Pro project. Let's go jump in here. So this is, I'll just open this here. So this is my project panel, and this is where everything was organized. Now, and actually, maybe before I do that, I'll show you I always lose my mouse. There we go. I'm going to show you my file structure as far as just organizing all my files for this. And everything that I've done for this project is condensed down into these files here. And so I organized by events. So we had a virtual presser. We had my visit to Ruiz's camp. This has its own set of, folders and things like that, B-roll. And then I have that separated out by the resolution and frame rate that I shot in. Interview footage. This is basically just camera A, camera B, and audio with some automatically generated files from Adobe Audition and stuff, which can be ignored. Photos, and kind of get an idea for just some of the shots from the gym. There's Mr. Canelo Alvarez in the background. And then So I kind of follow that structure for the camp visits. There was a local event that was here that captured some stuff for. So I always have an exports folder in all my project campaign folders, whatever you want to call it. This is a folder full of the creative that we used for this fight, which look like that. And then fight footage, obviously, if we're going to be, you can ignore all the peak files. It's really annoying, but it is what it is. So obviously when you're promoting a fight, you want to feature some fight footage. So this is where all my fight footage was stored. Flyer animations are kind of fun, and I'll kind of walk through how we did those. But basically, these are the files that I used to generate these animated flyer animations. So that fight creative I just showed you, for each of these big fights, I will typically take those flyers and find ways to animate them. I'll get the layered files from our graphic designer, bring them into Premiere, and just make a quick little animation out of it. Hero project files. This is sort of something I did. I actually created a separate project for this, which normally I would put everything on a single Premiere Pro project. The issue here is I find sometimes if you try to load too much, or if you're doing too much with like different effects and things like that, and multiple layers, it can start to slow your project down. So, and I was noticing that with these hero animations that I was putting together. So I decided to import those into a brand new project, and it helped speed things up quite a bit. Imagery, obviously, that's pretty self-explanatory. Lower thirds, if I did any videos where there were any anyone was being introduced in the video that maybe wasn't well known, or just for reference, I guess I have this little, I don't even know if it'll play. There you go. It's just kind of this little thing that pops out at the bottom, so you know who's talking. LR, this is for, this was the Lightroom catalog that I set up for all the photos that I took. Miscellaneous video, pretty self-explanatory. Music, any stock music that I might have downloaded, just put into this folder here. Portraits, I needed to, oh wait, I think this was related to the hero animations that I put together. Project files, so basically any Premiere or After Effects project files that I use, I will keep in this folder here. Promo, this was promos produced by Fox. This was another campaign, Road to the Top. Thumbnails, all of my video thumbnails I included, or I kept in a folder here. Weigh-in clips. This was, what was this? Oh, that's right. When I was, so I was shooting the weigh-in, and at the same time I was shooting the weigh-in, I also had my phone on the ground recording, so that I could then take those clips and use them on social later. A lot of multitasking that goes into all this. And then at the bottom there, just some relevant files and things like that, some handy reference spreadsheets. But anyway, most of this stuff, including basically all of this, gets imported, and the file structure stays relatively the same through all of this. By the way, and I made a TikTok about this. I can't remember if I posted it to YouTube Shorts or not, but if, let's say your project panel in Premiere Pro looks something like this, and you got all these things expanded, and you're like, wow, this is a mess. I'd really like to just decollapse everything. Instead of going through and having to click all these drop down arrows, there's an easier way to do it. All you got to do, just hit the Alt or Option key, click, and then release. And then it just collapses all the folders into one. So anyway, let's go here first. So this is my sequences folder, and basically all of these sequences relate to an individual video that I would have done. In some cases, there were some sequences where I would just I would do in and out points to export a portion of videos, so I would have multiple videos within a single sequence. But for the most part, all of these that you see here, all of these sequences are all individual videos. Just goes to show you how many assets were being produced for this one event. And now not all of these are, unique videos. For example, we have like these RTTT. Those were, and a lot of these videos were produced in different sizes. So you'll have your standard 16 by 9, aka 1920 by 1080 video. You'll have a square, which is usually 1080 by 1080, and then I would produce some assets at 1080 by 1920, which is tall, so it'll fit on like TikTok, or it'll fit on Instagram, IGTV, for example, or Instagram stories even. But man, I haven't really like looked at all of this in its entirety until now, and it just, again, it's like, it's just crazy how much the team and I were able to accomplish on this one. And this was just my portion. I had other guys on the team cutting a bunch of clips, and graphic designer, all sorts of graphical stuff that we were working on. Like, there's a lot that went into this. But yeah, so, and I probably could have organized these sequences here a little bit better. But you can kind of see that I created folders for different features. So for example, the Ruiz, I spelled Ruiz wrong there, but that's okay. Ruiz feature destroyer. So if I double click this and open this up, these here, I'll just kind of show you one of the sequences. So here's one sequence, and this is what a typical video timeline would look like for me. Nothing too crazy flashy. A little bit of color grading. This is, let's see if it'll play back. But that's kind of what the flyer animation looks like, and that would go at the end of some of the assets we were creating. So if someone watched all the way through, they would see, okay, so now I know the details of the fight. There's all the fighters, when it's going to be, what it's going to be on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of the features that we do are, 2 minutes or less. So you wouldn't think that they would take a while, but, when you're dealing with, let's go into this camp visit one. So let's say, you're trying to put together an interview piece, and then you want to put some B-roll over it. Well, now you've got to contend with all of these different files. And the way that I organized these were by frame rate, which is also associated with their resolution. So I know that's probably, let's see, there we go, 2997 and 120. So 2997 being 30 frames a second, 2997 specifically, and then 120 frames per second. So I did shoot some things at 1080p, 120 frames per second for some slow-mo. If we open this up, you can kind of just see some of these clips here. Like, we can always open this up and, let me come back to, there we go. So obviously they play back in real time, but you can bring them down, and you could throw this in a 30 frame per second timeline and slow it down to 25% and get you some nice silky slow motion footage, which comes in very handy for certain things. So going back into the project here, let's see if there's anything else noteworthy worth mentioning. With some of these projects, they're similar assets for different fighters. So if I open up like one of these RTTT sequences, kind of see how these are laid out. So this was using some Zoom interview footage pieced together with some pictures and things like that. And then I'll show you the flyer animation here, actually. Let me go back into my sequences. So we'll show you this one here. So basically what this entails, and I did something that I don't normally do, which is I put some sound design behind this one, and can I do that there? No, I can't. Okay. Hang on, let me turn on desktop audio so you can hear this as it plays back. But this is basically just a Photoshop file. And I imported the PSD. I cleaned it up a little bit so that the layers would work a little bit better in Premiere. But basically, I saved the Photoshop file how I wanted it, and then imported that Photoshop file into Premiere and imported it in the individual layers. Created a new sequence with them, and then that basically gave me the ability to animate everything individually. I can animate these fighters coming in. I can animate this text and make it do some interesting things, little different little effects, and then it looks and sounds like this when it's all put together. So that there we go. So that you can, there's some kind of obviously some initial attention grabbing animation in the beginning there. And then, and let me turn this off so it's not, there we go. So there's initial animation, text kind of comes in, fighters come in. And then from here on out, there's obviously the sound design in the background. But if you look, like let's say at the background up here, you can kind of see how that subtly changes and morphs a little bit. If you look at the main event fighters, you can see that they zoom in a little bit. Just something to kind of give off the, actually you can see it a lot easier if I go like that, the background moving and changing. So you can just kind of get a glimpse as to how things work there. There were also hero animations that we did, but that was in the other project file that I mentioned. But it just it's kind of based off of the same look with some sound design in the background and the fighter names and things like that. Let's see what else. What's this? Well, this was just a little quick hit one. I think one of my favorite features. Where was it here? It was one of the earlier ones. This destroyer feature. So this was fun just because it kind of told the story of how Andy Ruiz became known as the Destroyer. So this is one of the questions I asked him is, how did you get your nickname? And his nickname is the Destroyer, which you would think would be related to what he has accomplished in the gym and in the boxing ring, but it's actually not related to that at all. However, it fits perfectly. But I'll play this back for you, and you'll be able to see kind of how I was able to pair that with. You'll see. I'll just play it. You'll see what I mean.
So when I was like 7 years old, my uncle, he would take care of me because all my other aunts and uncles didn't want to take care of me because I would try to destroy everything. My dad would bring me a toy, and for some reason I didn't really care about the toys. I would just break them. Throw them. For no reason, I don't know why, and my dad would tell me, why do you have to destroy everything I give you?
Yeah, so he's kind of a monster. You get the gist there, but I thought that would be a fun way to kind of just... He really emphasized how he would destroy and break all his toys, and juxtaposing that with him just destroying his opponents seemed like a fitting way to do that. But as far as organization goes, what I think one of the biggest misconceptions is, and what I see a lot of people doing that is a little unnecessary, is they'll create a new project. A new Premiere Pro project for every new video that they want to make. That has its place, but especially, and we're talking specifically about multi-video campaigns, like campaigns like this, projects like this, where you're not just creating one asset or maybe like a few assets out of one video. You're creating multiple videos around the same kind of topic. And what's up, Anson and Co? Hey, Fiona Monday, he says, I like it. Don't get used to it. This is a one-time thing. I got home late on Sunday, so. But so people they'll create different projects, and there's a place for that. But if you're creating a lot of the same types of assets, there's no need to create a bunch of multiple different Premiere Pro projects. And it's also super helpful if you're reusing a lot of the same effects, which is a smart thing to do, considering, if you're trying to create some consistency and some continuity amongst all of the different assets that you're creating, it makes sense to be reusing some of the, you know, visual effects that you've used in some of your stuff. So, you know, and just from the sense of, if you create a new project for each new video, you've got to have either multiple video projects open, or you got to close one and open another one. And it's not always easy to go back and forth. So in this case, if you can create one master project like this, just one master project, you can create all of your sequences within it, and then you can have easy access to all of the different assets that you're creating. And then, you know, let's say I created this video. It's just a nest. Let's see. We'll go in, back to this one again. We'll just say, let's say, all right, I've got this sequence here. Now I want to make a square version. Well, you can just, and we'll do this real time. Here we go. Just copy, paste. You could say 1 by 1 or square, whatever you want to do. Open this new sequence up. It's going to look the same. Go in, sequence settings. And then all you got to do is change the frame size. It's going to give you a little warning, but we don't care about that. And then now you have your project in a square aspect ratio. You may need to go through and adjust some of the clips so that they center up. But other than that, you know, like, it's a lot better than having to open a new project and trying to reproduce that same video in a square frame. Yeah, you get the idea. Anson says, bro, congrats on passing the 100 sub marker for the channel. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's just finally getting to the point where it seems like YouTube is recognizing the stuff that I'm doing. So that's cool. Thanks for that. Getting back into Premiere here. But, you know, this was meant to be, I'm going to delete this sequence because I don't need it. This was meant to be, you know, organization tips. And really, that's just the tip. First of all, file structure. And everybody's file structure is going to be different. How you organize yourself is going to be up to you. The file structure that I use may not work for everyone. I will say, though, that the file structure that I use is very similar to a lot of people that I have talked to, and it seems to work really well. At least, and really, whatever file structure you use, the goal is to get in, you know, create something that is going to work for you and that you can go through, you know, something that's going to allow you to easily access the files. You know, like I have exports as the folder that I have for my finished assets go in a folder called exports. For someone else, that folder might be called finished videos, or, you know, done, or whatever you want to call it. But as long as you know what that means and what's in it and how to get to it quickly, that's really what matters. You know, and I'm not going to pretend to be holier than thou in that you know, if I'm just working on like a quick one-off video, I'm definitely not going to go through this level of organization. If there's like a simple video that I need to make and I have 2 assets that I'm going to, you know, piece together into a video, I'll probably just throw those into a random folder, open up a fresh project, toss them into the project panel, not worry too much about organizing the files or sequences, and I'll make my video. But for something like this, man, like, I remember using Premiere early on and not having much organization, and I just remember, especially before I realized you could create a bunch of different sequences and create a bunch of different videos within the same project. Before that time, I was a mess. I couldn't find the stuff that I needed as fast, and it just became a hassle. So if you work in Premiere a lot, really work on your file structure and really work on organizing that footage. You know, something that I didn't do for this one that I would do if I had the time going back, I probably would have done different, would have been, you know, it's great to set aside your, let's see, let me do this. There we go. So it's great to, you know, say compartmentalize, not the right word, but to organize your footage by resolution and frame rate, and that's awesome. What I probably should have done is gone in there and looked through all the footage and titled it. So what's this file? This file is Chris Arreola jumping rope. So I could have titled that Chris Arreola jumping rope. Because yeah, you can double click on this. You can look through the thumbnails here, and that's helpful. But sometimes if you're in a rush, it's helpful just to look at the file name and be able to just click on that. But I don't know, man. That's how I do things, though. So, but I'm happy to be done with that campaign. There we go. Couldn't get myself back on the screen. So yeah, I'm happy to be done with it. We've got more big fights coming up this summer, so that's definitely not the end of the work by any means. It is nice though, like when you start working on big projects like that, and then you start to get really into them. Like you've invested so much into it that you can't help but want it to succeed. And it looks like the preliminary numbers that we have so far are looking really good. And I'm proud of myself and proud of the team that I worked with to get it done. And that's that. But anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and call this one done for today. But if you are still with me and you enjoyed what you saw or heard, please hit that subscribe button wherever you happen to be watching or listening, and follow me on social media at Ryan Havey on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for being here. Hope everyone has a great week. Stay cool or warm depending on where you live, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.